Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really powerful story. It's about love, about loss, and it raises some huge questions about what consciousness even is. This is the story of Kaila. If you've ever loved and lost a pet, you've probably asked yourself this at some point. Is that connection really gone forever? Well, in this explainer, we're looking at a case where some people make the pretty incredible claim that the answer is no, it's not. So at the very heart of all this is a little dachshund named Kaila. Her life and her really mysterious death kicked off this whole extraordinary investigation into the bonds that connect us all. And here she is, just a little 2-month-old puppy. Her owner, Christian Roca, said his entire life changed the second he met her. And this little dog, well, she would become the center of a story that's pretty hard to believe. So Kaila grew up, she found a mate, and she had 5 puppies of her own. Her owner called them the most beautiful dachshund family. He said she was just this incredibly affectionate dog, really the heart of their home. They all lived together down in the beautiful landscapes of southern Chile. But this really idyllic, peaceful life, it was just completely shattered one day when Kaila suddenly disappeared. It was just a normal evening, and she didn't come home. The next day, Christian started to suspect that she'd actually been stolen. He spent 15 agonizing days searching, talking to absolutely everyone he could think of, but nothing, no trace of her. The not knowing must have been just awful. It was actually much later that Kristen finally found out what really happened. Tragically, she'd been hit by a car, and that image, he says, still haunts him. I mean, you can just feel the profound grief in those words, something anyone who's lost a pet knows all too well. Okay, so this is where the story takes a very, very unusual turn. In his grief, Christian reached out to a group of researchers who specialize in a field called instrumental transcommunication. He was just desperate for answers. So what is instrumental transcommunication, or ITC? Well, it's definitely a controversial field. The idea is that you use electronic devices, like radios tuned to static or digital voice recorders, to try and capture voices from another dimension, a non-physical realm. And in this case, the researchers claim they actually did it. They say they made contact with Kaila. And that's the massive question the source material puts on the table. After she passed away, could her consciousness, her personality, her voice still be reached? The researchers behind this believe the answer is a firm yes. And these are the actual phrases they claim to have captured on their recordings. They're in Portuguese, but we have the English translations here. Things like, "I am here and I will try." These are the messages they reported receiving. Now, the source uses Kaila's case as a sort of jumping-off point for a much, much bigger idea. The possibility that consciousness isn't just something that happens in our brains, but that it might actually be a fundamental part of the universe itself. This whole concept has a name. It's called panpsychism. It's a pretty wild philosophical idea that suggests every single thing, down to the smallest atom, has some tiny spark of awareness. It totally flips the script on the idea that consciousness just magically turns on when you have a complex brain like a human's. And believe it or not, this debate has been raging for centuries. You have ancient Greek thinkers like Pythagoras who thought humans and animals basically shared the same soul. Then you have Aristotle who saw animals as lesser beings. Fast forward to the 17th century, and philosophers like Gassendi were arguing against the idea that animals were just mindless machines. And of course, many Eastern traditions have always seen animals as having souls and dignity. Modern philosophy is still grappling with this. Thinkers like Michael Tai basically argue that, look, when we see animals acting in ways that are so similar to how we act when we feel pain or joy, we should probably assume there's some kind of consciousness going on there. So you might be wondering, panpsychism, ancient Greeks, what does any of this have to do with Kaila the dachshund? Well, the source presents her case as a deeply personal, real-world example of these huge philosophical ideas. And here's the real takeaway they present. It's all about connection. Kaila's supposed messages aren't just about her surviving death. They're presented as proof that consciousness, and maybe even love itself, can flow beyond our bodies, beyond different species, and maybe even beyond death. So really, the ultimate point of the source material is this. Kaila the dog is elevated from being just a much-loved family pet to becoming a key piece of a puzzle, a clue in this grand theory about a living, conscious, and interconnected universe. And that leaves us with a final, really profound thought to chew on. Kayla's story pushes us to ask this question. If we start thinking of love not just as an emotion, but as a genuine expression of consciousness, well, what does that mean for its permanence? Can something like that ever really end? It's a question that definitely sticks with you.